Your baby is lying there. You've spent 45 minutes bouncing them, feeding them, singing to them, doing the thing where you swing them like a pendulum while making increasingly desperate sounds. Nothing worked. And then you set them down on the playmat, stand up to stretch your back, and their gaze drifts upward to the ceiling fan. And they are gone, not sleeping, not distracted, gone, completely transfixed, staring at this ordinary household appliance with the focused intensity of someone who has just glimpsed something they cannot yet name. Their mouth goes slack, their arms go still. Sometimes they start to smile. And you are standing there, a person who has been running elaborate entertainment routines for the last hour, watching your baby be more captivated by a rotating piece of white plastic than by anything you have ever done. You probably laughed, or felt personally rejected, or both. That stare is not a quirk. It is one of the most sophisticated visual and neurological processes your baby's developing brain knows how to run. Far more complex, far more important than most parents realize. Once you understand what their brain is actually doing in that moment, you will never look at a ceiling fan the same way again. Before we go on, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if you're loving this story, subscribe, because tomorrow we have something extra special waiting for you. There are 7 things happening inside your baby's brain when they stare at that fan. 7 distinct neurological processes running simultaneously in a 2-month-old lying on a playmat in your living room. 1. Your baby is not zoning out. They are learning physics. Zoning out gets used constantly to describe the ceiling fan stare. Parents say it all the time. She just zones out when she looks at it. The phrase carries a gentle dismissal, the idea that the baby has checked out, that nothing is really happening. The research tells a different story. When your baby stares at the ceiling fan, their visual cortex is not at rest, it is firing. Specifically, it is doing something researchers call visual tracking and predictive processing, the brain's early attempt to identify patterns, predict movement, and build a foundational understanding of how objects behave in the physical world. A study published in Developmental Psychology found that infants as young as 2 months showed measurable visual preference for objects with high contrast, movement, and repeating circular patterns, a ceiling fan, described in scientific language. Every time your baby's eyes follow the arc of those blades, their brain is constructing a model of rotation, trajectory, and how a moving object relates to the space around it. That understanding becomes the cognitive foundation for spatial reasoning, cause and effect thinking, and mathematics. Your baby is not zoning out. Your baby is discovering that the universe has rules. 2. The fan is doing something that faces cannot do. Your face, said with full affection, is one of the most cognitively demanding objects your baby encounters. Every time they look at you, their brain is doing an enormous amount of work. Reading your emotional expression, updating their social map of who you are, managing the bidirectional demands of a face that looks back, that changes, that expects responses. Faces are socially demanding, and social processing in infancy is metabolically expensive. Research from developmental psychologist Lauren Adamson and colleagues found that infants cycle between periods of high social engagement and gaze aversion, not as signs of disinterest, but as regulatory behavior. The baby looks away from a face not because the face is boring, but because the brain needs a moment to recover before it can engage again. The ceiling fan is the perfect gaze aversion target. It is visually engaging but makes no social demands. The fan does not look back. It does not change its expression. It does not need anything from them. When your baby turns from your face to the ceiling fan, they are not rejecting you. They are giving their social processing systems a moment to integrate everything they just took in. And then they look back at you. 3. They are seeing something you literally cannot see. Your baby's visual system in the first months of life is not the same as yours. Not just less developed, differently tuned. Adults have highly refined visual systems that efficiently filter out information irrelevant to immediate goals. We see what we need to see and skip what we don't. We are remarkably bad at certain kinds of visual perception that babies, precisely because their filtering is not yet developed, are remarkably good at. One of those things is flicker. Research on infant visual processing has found that very young babies have a significantly higher flicker fusion rate than adults, meaning they can perceive individual flashes of light at speeds that adult eyes average into a continuous image. A ceiling fan spinning at moderate speed looks to you like a blur or a solid disk. To your young baby, it may appear as something closer to a strobe. Individual blades, motion broken into discrete events, something far more visually complex than what you're seeing. Your baby is not staring at what you see when you look up. This is also why the ceiling fan works and the television often doesn't, at least in early infancy. The television is too fast, too unpredictable, too semantically dense. The fan is rich enough to hold attention, but slow and regular enough to be processable, calibrated by pure accident almost perfectly to where your baby's visual system currently lives. 4. They are learning that they exist. Very young infants do not have a clear boundary between self and world. The concept of where they end and everything else begins has to be constructed, built through the gradual accumulation of evidence that there is a body, that the body is separate from other things. One of the primary ways this happens is through movement. When your baby moves their hand and watches it move, they are collecting evidence that the hand is theirs, that they caused the movement, that there is a connection between intention and action. This is called proprioceptive self-mapping, one of the foundational processes of early self-development. The ceiling fan participates in this in a specific way. When your baby tracks it with their eyes, they are developing voluntary gaze control, learning that they can choose where to look, that their visual attention is something they can direct. Research on saccadic eye movement development found that infants with more experience tracking moving objects showed faster development of voluntary attention control. Every time your baby follows those fan blades, they are not just watching something, they are practicing being a self. 5. The stillness is not emptiness, it is processing. You have probably noticed that the ceiling fan stare produces a specific kind of quiet in your baby. The arms slow down, the legs stop kicking, the face goes calm and focused. They look, from the outside, almost meditative. Parents sometimes find this unnerving. The stillness looks like absence, like something has switched off. What has actually happened is the opposite. Researchers who study infant states of consciousness describe this as a quiet, alert state, one of the distinct behavioral states infants cycle through, differentiated from sleeping, crying, drowsy, and active alert. The quiet alert state is, neurologically, the state in which infants are most receptive to learning. Heart rate is steady, cortisol is low, attention systems are fully engaged. The ceiling fan is remarkably good at inducing and sustaining this state. What looks like absence is actually presence at its most concentrated. The arms have stopped moving because the brain has redirected resources to visual processing. The face has gone still because no social performance is required. Your baby is not checked out. They are more fully in than almost any other moment of their day. 6. It is practicing for something that matters enormously. What skill predicts a child's ability to learn, succeed academically, and regulate their own behavior in a classroom? Developmental researchers consistently come back to the same answer: sustained attention. The ability to hold focus on something complex for long enough to extract meaning from it, to resist distraction, to stay with a problem past the point of easy reward. Sustained attention is not a personality trait, it is a skill, and like any skill, it is built through practice. Those long, quiet minutes of ceiling fans staring are sustained attention practice. Research from longitudinal studies on infant attention, specifically the work of Joseph Fagan and colleagues on infant recognition memory, found that the duration and quality of infant visual attention in the first months of life was a significant predictor of cognitive outcomes at school age. Not because the ceiling fan makes babies smarter, because the act of sustaining attention repeatedly across the early months is building the neural infrastructure of focus itself. Every uninterrupted minute your baby spends tracking that fan is adding architecture to the attention system their brain will rely on for the next 2 decades. You have been living with a developmental exercise tool this entire time. It is mounted to your ceiling. It probably came with the house. 7. What to do and what not to do with this information. None of this means you should replace interaction with ceiling fans. You are still, by a significant margin, the most important developmental object in your baby's world. The face-to-face interaction, the serve and return, the emotional attunement, none of that is replaced by a spinning appliance. When your baby turns to the fan, let them. Resist the pull to redirect their attention back to you or to something you've decided is more appropriately stimulating. The turn to the fan may be exactly what their brain needs: the processing break, the predictable visual anchor, the quiet alert window they found on their own. Narrating can help. Not constant narration, not performance, just the simple habit of noticing what they're noticing. You found the fan. It's spinning, isn't it? Your voice, calm and close, layered over what they are attending to, is the beginning of joint attention, of shared looking. And when you're exhausted and you set them down beneath the fan and they lock in and go still and you get 5 minutes to simply exist, that is not failure. That is their brain doing exactly what it needs to do while you recover enough to be the person their nervous system needs you to be. The ceiling fan is doing genuine developmental work, and so are you by letting it. Every revolution of those blades, every arc their eyes trace across the ceiling, every quiet alert minute of that unblinking stare, it is all going somewhere, into the architecture of a mind just beginning to understand that it exists, that the world has rules, that somewhere below them is a person, your face, your warmth, your voice, who will be there when they look back down. And they will look back down. They always look back down. That's our story. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. And tomorrow, more stories are waiting for you. Thanks for watching.